Am I audible? लगता तो नहीं है. चलो फिर भी कोई ना. Okay, good luck, Shubham. Yes, you are right, Srinivas. नहीं हुआ तो मैं दूसरा ड्रॉप लूंगी. Good luck, Ayan. मैं ये ऑफ कर देती हूँ. ओके, गुड लक अयान, गुड लक शुभम. तुम दोनों को ही गुड लक, लेकिन अभी मैं ऑफ कर दे रही हूँ. ओके, the components of ecosystem are seen to function as a unit. The components of ecosystem are seen to function as a unit. Productivity, decomposition, energy flow, and nutrient cycling. Productivity, energy flow, and nutrient cycling, along with the decomposition. Productivity, decomposition, energy flow, and nutrient cycling are the four components of ecosystem. What are the four components of ecosystem? Within productivity, decomposition, energy, and nutrition cycling. Productivity, decomposition, energy flow. Productivity, decomposition, energy flow, nutrient cycling. Productivity, decomposition, energy flow, productivity, decomposition, energy flow, and nutrient cycling. Vertical distribution of different species occupying different level. Vertical distribution of different species occupying different level. Stratification. Vertical distribution of different species occupying different level is called stratification. Vertical distribution of different species occupying different level is called stratification. For example, trees occupy the vertical strata or a layer of forest. For example, trees occupy the vertical strata or layer of a forest. Shrubs, the second, and herbs, the grasses, occupy the bottom. Identification and enumeration of plants and animals species of an ecosystem. Give its spatial composition. Vertical distribution of different species occupying different level is called stratification. Vertical distribution of different species occupying different levels is called stratification. Productivity decomposition, PDEN, energy flow and nutrient cycling. Are represented by zooplankton, the free swimming and bottom dwelling forms. The decomposers are the fungi, bacteria, and flagellate, especially abundant in the bottom of the pond. This system performs all the function of any ecosystem and of the biosphere as a whole, that is, conversion of inorganic into organic material. Okay, bacteria, fungi, or flagellates in the bottom of the pond. This system performs all the function of an ecosystem and of the biosphere as a whole, that is, conversion of inorganic into organic material, with the help of radiant energy of the sun by the autotrophs. With the help of radiant energy of the sun by the autotrophs. Consumption of the autotrophs by heterotrophs, decomposition and mineralization of the dead matter to release them back for reuse by autotrophs. Over again. There is a unidirectional movement of energy towards higher tropic level. Unidirectional energy towards higher tropic level. Its dissipation and loss as heat to the environment. Its dissipation and loss as heat to the environment. Okay, productivity. Primary production. Okay, a constant input of solar energy is the basic requirement for any ecosystem to function and sustain. Primary productivity is defined as the amount of biomass or organic matter produced per unit area over time period by plants during photosynthesis. Primary production is the amount of biomass or organic matter produced per unit area over a time period by plant during photosynthesis is known as primary production. Primary production is the amount of biomass or organic substance or organic material produced per unit area in a particular time, in a given time, per unit area over a time period by plant को produce करेगा plant during photosynthesis is called primary productivity. It is defined as the amount of organic matter or material amount of organic matter or biomass produced per unit area by plant during photosynthesis in a given period of time, over a time period. It is expressed in terms of weight, gram per meter square or kilocalorie per meter square. Kilocalorie energy, kilocalorie per meter square. Weight को terms में gram per meter square. Primary productivity, gram per meter square. Energy को term में kilocalorie per meter square. Energy ra weight को terms में weight को terms में gram per meter square. Energy को terms में kilocalorie per meter square. Kilocalorie per meter square. The rate of biomass produced is called productivity. The rate of biomass produced is called productivity. It is expressed in terms of gram. The rate of biomass produced is called productivity. There is a difference between primary production and productivity. Productivity is the rate of production of biomass. The rate of biomass production is called productivity. Rate of biomass production is called productivity. It is again expressed in terms of weight and energy. Weight, gram per meter square per year. Gram meter square per year. Gram per meter square per year. Kilocalorie per meter square per year. To compare the productivity of different ecosystem, it is expressed in terms of gram per meter square per year or kilocalorie per meter square per year. It can be divided into gross primary productivity of different ecosystem. Okay, productivity of different ecosystem. It can be divided into gross primary productivity, GPP, and net primary productivity, NPP. That is GPP and gross primary productivity. Productivity of productivity, rate of biomass production, productivity, gross primary productivity and and the other one is net primary productivity. Gross primary productivity GPP and net primary productivity NPP. Gross primary productivity of an ecosystem is the rate of production of organic matter during photosynthesis. Rate of production of matter during photosynthesis. Productivity, okay, not production. Productivity is the rate of biomass, rate of production of organic matter or biomass during photosynthesis. Rate of production of organic matter. Rate of production of organic matter during photosynthesis. During photosynthesis, rate of production of organic matter. Gross primary productivity. Gross primary productivity. Rate of production of organic matter during photosynthesis. A considerable amount of GPP is utilized by plants in respiration. A considerable amount of GPP is utilized by plants in respiration. It can be divided into gross primary productivity GPP and net primary productivity NPP. Gross primary productivity of an ecosystem is the rate of production of organic matter during photosynthesis. Okay, gross primary productivity of an ecosystem is the rate of production it can be divided into gross primary productivity GPP and net primary productivity NPP. Gross primary productivity of an ecosystem is the rate of production of organic matter during photosynthesis. Ecosystem is the rate of production of organic matter during photosynthesis. Gross primary productivity. Now, a considerable amount of GPP is utilized by plant in respiration. Gross primary productivity minus respiration losses. Respiration losses are is the net primary productivity NPP. Considerable amount of GPP is utilized by plant in respiration. Respiratory losses. GPP minus R equals to NPP. It can be divided into gross primary productivity GPP and net primary productivity NPP. Gross primary productivity of an ecosystem is the rate of production of organic matter during photosynthesis. Gross primary productivity of an ecosystem is the rate of production of organic matter during photosynthesis. Production of organic matter during photosynthesis. Rate of primary productivity is the available biomass for the consumption of heterotrophs. Herbivores and decomposers. Secondary productivity is defined as the rate of formation of new organic matter by consumers. Rate of formation of new organic matter by consumers. Secondary productivity. Biomass for consumption of heterotrophs, herbivores and decomposers. Secondary productivity is defined as the rate of formation of new organic matter by consumers. Okay. Primary productivity depends on plant species inhabiting a particular area. It also depends on, productivity depends on the plant species inhabiting a particular area. Primary productivity, okay. It also depends on the variety of environmental factors, availability of nutrients, and photosynthetic capacity of plant. Therefore, it varies in different types of ecosystem. The annual net primary productivity of the whole biosphere is approximately 170 billion tons. Annual net primary productivity. annual net primary productivity. The whole biosphere is approximately 170 billion tons. 170 billion tons. 170 billion tons annual net primary productivity. Annual net primary productivity. The annual net primary productivity of the whole biosphere is approximately 170 billion tons dry weight organic matter. The annual net primary productivity of the whole biosphere is approximately 170 billion tons dry weight of organic matter. Of this, despite occupying 70% of the surface, the productivity of ocean are only 55 billion tons. 55 billion tons, 170 billion tons. Okay, dry weight organic matter. Of this, despite occupying about 70% of the surface. Let's try it. 170 billion tons. 170 billion tons. Dry weight. Okay, 170 billion tons dry weight of organic matter. Whole biosphere को net primary productivity, annual net primary productivity of whole biosphere. डल्लै biosphere को कति हो 170 billion tons dry weight. 170 billion tons dry weight of organic matter. Of this, despite occupying about 70% of the surface, the productivity of the oceans are only 55 billion tons. Biosphere is approximately 170 billion tons dry weight of organic matter. Of this, and despite occupying about 70% of the surface, the productivity of oceans are only 55 billion tons. The rest, of course, is on land. Discuss the main reason for low productivity of ocean with your teacher. Sunlight, lack of biodiversity, and nutrient like nitrogen content is low. Secondary primary productivity. Gross primary productivity, 170 billion. Net primary productivity, that is net primary productivity, 170 billion ton. Decomposers. Decomposers break down complex organic matter into inorganic substances like carbon dioxide, water, and nutrients, and the process is called a decomposition. Similarly, decomposers break down complex organic matter into inorganic substances like carbon dioxide, water, nutrients, and process is called decomposition. Decomposers break down complex organic matter into inorganic substances like carbon dioxide, water, and nutrients, and the process is called decomposition. Decomposers break down complex organic matter into inorganic substances like carbon dioxide, water, nutrient, and the process is called decomposition. Dead plant remains such as leaves, bark, flowers, and dead remains of animals, including fecal matter, constitute detritus, which is a raw material for the decomposition. The important step in the process of decomposition are fragmentation, leaching, catabolism, then finally humification and mineralization. Fragmentation, leaching, catabolism, humification, and mineralization. Detrivores example, earthworm break down detritus into small particles. This process is called fragmentation. Detrivores example, earthworm. break down detritus into small particles. This process is called fragmentation. Okay, by the process of leaching, water soluble inorganic nutrient go down into the soil horizon, get precipitated. Leaching, water soluble inorganic substance, water soluble inorganic substance. Bacterial and fungi enzyme degrade. Bacterial and bacterial and fungal enzyme degrade. Bacterial and fungal enzyme degrade. वो आ गया है तो वाईफाई आई वापस से आ गया है वाईफाई रुको refresh. Bacterial and fungal enzyme degrade the detritus into simpler inorganic substances. Simpler inorganic substances. This process is called catabolism. It is important to note that all the above steps in decomposition operate simultaneously on detritus. Okay, it is important to note that all the above steps in decomposition operate simultaneously on the detritus, that is fragmentation, leaching, and catabolism. Fragmentation, leaching, and catabolism operate simultaneously. Fragmentation, leaching, fragmentation, leaching, fragmentation, leaching, and catabolism occurs simultaneously. Okay. Then humification and mineralization occurs during decomposition of the soil. Humification leads to accumulation of dark colored amorphous substances called humus that is highly resistant to microbial action and undergoes decomposition at an extremely slow rate. Humification and mineralization occur during decomposition. Humification leads to accumulation of dark colored amorphous substances called humus that is highly resistant to microbial growth. Dark colored amorphous substances that is highly resistant to microbial action and undergoes decomposition at an extremely slow rate. Being colloidal in nature, it is a reservoir of nutrient. The humus is further degraded by some microbes and release of inorganic nutrient occurs by the process known as mineralization. Humus is further degraded by microbes and release of inorganic nutrient occurred by the process known as mineralization. Decomposition is largely an oxygen requiring process. Decomposition is largely an oxygen requiring process. Okay. Colored amorphous substances called humus that is highly resistant to microbial action and undergoes decomposition at an extremely slow rate. The humus is further degraded by some microbes and release an inorganic nutrient. The humus is further degraded by some microbes and release of inorganic nutrients occur by the process known as mineralization. Decomposition is largely an oxygen requiring process. Decomposition is largely an oxygen requiring process. The rate of decomposition is controlled by chemical composition of detritus and climatic factor. Decomposition is largely an oxygen requiring process. Decomposition is largely an oxygen requiring process. The rate of decomposition is controlled by chemical composition of detritus and climatic factor. Decomposition is largely an oxygen requiring process. The rate of decomposition is controlled by chemical composition of detritus and the climatic factor. In a particular climatic condition, decomposition rate is slower if detritus is rich in like lignin and chitin. Okay, slower. Decomposition slower, rich in lignin and chitin. Decomposition is quicker if it is rich in nitrogen and water soluble substances like sugar. Temperature and soil moisture are the most important climatic factors that regulate decomposition through their effects on the activities of soil microbes. Warm and moist environment favors decomposition, whereas low temperature and anaerobiosis inhibit decomposition, resulting in build-up organic materials. Warm and moist environment favor decomposition, whereas low temperature and anaerobiosis inhibit decomposition, resulting in build-up of organic materials. Warm and moist environment favors decomposition, whereas low temperature and anaerobiosis inhibit decomposition. Warm and moist environment favors decomposition, whereas low temperature and anaerobiosis inhibit decomposition. Warm and moist environment favors decomposition, whereas low temperature and anaerobiosis inhibit decomposition. Warm and moist environment. मंजुलिका एक बाल गीले है ना, इसलिए मैं इसको टाई करना नहीं चाहती थी. जिंदगी में सब कुछ ही खराब हो गया है, इसलिए पढ़ाई कर रही हूँ. तुम भी पढ़ो, जिंदगी को बाद में देख लेंगे. Temperature and soil moisture are most important climatic factor that regulates decomposition through their effects on the Activities of soil microbes. Warm and moist environment favors decomposition, whereas low temperature and anaerobiosis inhibit decomposition, resulting in the build-up of organic material. Warm and moist environment favors decomposition, whereas low temperature and anaerobiosis inhibit decomposition, resulting in building up of organic matter. Energy flow. Okay. Of the incident solar radiation. Deep hydrothermal ecosystem. Sun is the only source of energy. Sun is the only source of energy. Sun is the only source of energy. Okay. Of the incident solar radiation, less than 50% of the photosynthetically active radiation photosynthetically active radiation. Okay, less than 50%. Also, less than 50% of the photosynthetically active radiation part